Hey, welcome to another edition of Know the Bible, plain and simple, looking at the stories of Scripture. Today we are story number 31, still in the life of Jesus. Today, Jesus invites. Uh, Luke chapter 19 would be a good chapter to read, the story about Zacchaeus we'll get to in a little bit. When I think about Jesus inviting, he's not only inviting people to come to him, but he's sometimes inviting himself to go to them as well. Um, in terms of Jesus inviting, there are different stories that come to mind. One, of course, is his invitation to people to follow him, and specifically the apostles. The apostles are the 12 special, I guess you might say, disciples of Jesus, whom he calls early on, and these 12 stick with him all the way to the end until one of them betrays him, Judas. But the 11 are still there, and then they add to that number after the resurrection as well. These 12 are called apostles. Apostles mean sent ones, and we hear the stories of some of those apostles being invited to follow Jesus. We hear about Peter and his brother Andrew, who are both fishermen, whom Jesus says, "Come, follow me," and they leave their nets behind and their boat behind, and they follow Jesus. In the same way, James and his brother John also invited, and they leave their father and their boat behind to follow Jesus as well. Not that this was the first time they saw Jesus. They'd probably met and talked with him and followed him a little bit here and there already, but Jesus finally invites them, like, now is the time to come. Another one that stands out is Matthew, who wrote the Gospel of Matthew, who was himself a tax collector, and Jesus calls him, even though a tax collector is not looked well upon by Jews because he was a Jewish person working for the Romans. Nonetheless, Jesus calls him from his tax booth, and Matthew comes and follows Jesus as one of the apostles. Also comes to mind then is another tax collector, Zacchaeus. He was a little man, they say. He was short, and so one time Jesus comes into town, and there's a large crowd, and Zacchaeus couldn't see him, so Zacchaeus climbs up in a sycamore tree in order to get a better view of Jesus. Jesus stops under the tree and says, "Zacchaeus, come on down. I want to come to your house today." And so this is one of the times where Jesus invites himself over, and Zacchaeus is so moved by his time with Jesus that Zacchaeus gives away a huge portion of his income and promises to rectify any wrongs that he's done in the past. Other invitations of Jesus, I think about his invitation to us to do things, one of them to pray. In Luke chapter 11, one of those cases where Jesus invites us to pray. And he makes this great comparison. He says, listen, if a son asks a father for something, if the son asks a father for a fish, that father's not going to give him a snake. And if the son asks the father for an egg, that father isn't going to give him a scorpion. So much more will your father not give you bad things, but give you greater things when you ask him. So ask, and he will answer. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will open. He invites us into that prayerful relationship with the Father. And then I'd love to just read from Matthew 11, an invitation from Jesus. Just a beautiful passage where Jesus says, he invites us, "Come to me," he says, "all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light." When Jesus invites us to him, it's never for our harm or for our detriment or for anything that will make things worse. But he invites us out of his love to come closer. And not only does he invite us, but he also invites himself into our presence as well. I think that's where I want to finish it up today is Revelation chapter 3, verse 20. There's another example when even when we may not be coming to him, Jesus nonetheless comes to us. He says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone opens the door, I will come into him and eat with him and he with me." And he is constantly not only inviting us closer to him, but he's inviting himself closer to us, so that we may really find the joy of being in his presence and he in ours. Jesus invites. What stood out to you from those stories today? What did you know? What didn't you know? What's your favorite? Do you have an example of Jesus inviting? Maybe an example of Jesus inviting you, or Jesus inviting himself to you in one way or another. Think about that and see how he might be inviting himself in one way or another into your life at different stages. Talk about that with each other, and of course, take some time to pray for and with one another, and also take time to close with the Lord's Prayer. And we'll see you next time when we look at Jesus reveals. Who is Jesus? That's will be the focus next time. Thanks. Bye-bye.